Welcome everybody to episode 22 of PT Shop Talk. On our episode today, we talk about our own
23.
personal injuries and
20.
stories. Is this 23? Oh man.
This is the first time we've lampooned the intro, but
Yeah.
It's the remix.
Yeah. Quiet for a second. Welcome everybody to episode 23 of PT Shop Talk. On this episode, we talk about our personal injury stories, how we rehabbed ourselves, what it looked like, and how it's changed. And then we finish up with our top 5 vacation experiences. With me today, as always, is Nick, Las Vegas, baby, Doling, and Jeremy, Sleep. That's all the vacation you need, Van Klompenberg. Welcome, gentlemen.
Glad to be here.
welcome, Casey. I really want to end. Go ahead.
Well,
You got something to say.
I was just gonna say we're busy tonight. Nick's got, like, for those YouTubers out there, Nick's pumping guns, sleeveless shirt with some lays. I don't know what kind of flowers are those.
Those are orchids and flamingos.
Boom.
Cheeseburger in paradise.
Yeah, the old Club Dread. And I'm wearing the busiest outfit I
Huge
could
Jimmy
find.
Buffett guy. Yeah, you're not wearing a quarter zip.
First time ever, if you guys watch videos, that I don't think I've had a 3/4 zip on. So it's weird. You get to see my white ass forearms. So, and Jeremy, you have a pleasant yellow on today too.
Thank you. What are the odds that Doling's wearing cowboy boots right now?
Nope, my tootsies are out barefoot.
Ooh, I would have guessed cowboy sandals, like a mixture of cowboy boots and sandals, where it still goes up
I
the
wear
calf,
cowboy
but
boots
the bottom
one
sandals.
time around Van Klompen.
It's completely
figured it fit.
justified, I would say, to
I
ask
figured
those
it fit.
questions.
Grew up on a farm with horses, Jeremy.
That's good.
And the
That's good.
horses judged you as well for your boots.
You're gonna alienate a portion of our audience that likes to wear cowboy boots.
He's just asking
Yeah.
questions, Nick. He's hard hitting. That's what we do on this show.
Right. No stone unturned.
I think that's more than just surface deep.
Yeah, so
to it.
for me today, I had a game with my soccer game right before this, so I felt like 3/4 zip and 85 degrees temp. It's gonna be too much because I do
Pushing it.
undershirt, shirt, 3/4 zip, jacket. That's my typical style. I'm very cold all the time because I like a jacket. Like, I like pockets for my crap. I don't like putting things in my pants. I don't know if you guys are like, throw my wallet in my. What do you like? What do you do with your phone, your wallet, your keys?
Typically, I'm a pants guy. I
Dang,
did.
son.
I did. I made
So
the
much
switch
stuff.
to. Yeah, I made the switch to a Ridge knockoff wallet, the little compressed guy.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
So that's a front pocket wallet now.
Okay, I like that.
My phone doesn't really fit there. Keys don't really fit there. I probably should just go to a fanny pack, to be honest.
Mm.
Yeah. Fanny pack,
Be,
not just for
be more
vacation.
functional.
Yeah, they're back. Yeah, talk about vacations. You can vacation every day with a fanny pack.
True. It's a mindset.
But yeah,
Good
man,
point.
summer is starting and things get busy. I have young kids, and it's already wild. I don't know,
yeah.
like, Nick, how do you handle it? Like, because I have a coworker too that, like, last year she had 4 kids in school, and it was unbelievable the amount of running.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
how
Summer's
folks do it.
Summer's just crazier than the school year. At least in the school year, as I was telling some people this week, those events and those activities are relegated to predominantly
Evening.
after 3 p.m., right? Evening. And it's usually very seasonal. So you get into summer and it's just a free for all. Everybody's cramming in stuff. We have, I don't know, we try to just take it one day at a time, even though Michelle's better than I am at strategizing, the whole week in the moment. But really, if you start looking at it, it's easy to get overwhelmed in all the running you have to do and figuring out how to coordinate a lunch break or, the start of your day, dropping one kid off at a practice or something like that, how you do the end of your day, just strategic stuff, and thankfully Michelle has a lot of flexibility with her job. She has a few days that are earmarked just to work from home. So that obviously helps. And with Connor and Maddie being old enough to bike ride, that helps too. I mean, they'll tear around town most of the time, but there are some activities such as like volleyball practices that are just too far from Az. We don't want her going on the bike by herself. So she gets a ride, but then you coordinate with friends and you got other parents that'll pick her up. Yeah. So it's a lot of thinking on the fly and jumbled.
I always struggle with that in Fargo. Like, at what age I would feel comfortable with my kids just biking to something? Like
22.
Would you? Right? Would you ever?
It's hard to imagine like I would ever be, maybe with both of them going somewhere together when they were older, but man, that's like, I don't know, the world's different, like
different. Yeah. It's a different vibe for where you're at versus us. I mean, Marshall's like 13,000 people, so much.
The metro hub. Hub.
But a lot more. I don't know. I feel a lot more trustworthy with them out and about.
Yeah. Yeah, I just always wonder that, like, because as a kid, for me growing up, that was no thing. My parents, see you later, like, get home, I was, but I'd never do that now with my kids. But I'm not saying my parents were bad parents, but
you might get to a point though, we were in the same spot too, but once you experience it and they're out and about, you start knocking down some of those walls and you let your guard down a little bit more in a good way, and you get less and less cautious. I know, especially for Michelle, because I grew up and my parents were very loose and lax in the summer, and I've been more free and easy. But Michelle's just a little bit more concerned, I guess, about things, and over time she's loosened up a ton.
I was one of 5 kids, and I figure after the second one, they just stopped caring, and they were just like, well, you're good, whatever.
But in all fairness, when you were 12, you were 6'3", so everybody thought you were an adult. Nobody was going to kidnap you.
No, I said
nobody's going to take a full-grown man off of a bike.
Right, or they might try.
That's fair.
But
bring it on.
No, the Camby was so small. I say like the whole town kind of raised you a little bit, because even if you didn't know who people were completely, like they knew who you were enough to be like, if you don't knock that off, I'm going to call your mom. And so. Yeah, I was just referencing that earlier, where it's like 6 to 15 was spent on a bike, that's how it was. But
how are them quads?
Ripped.
Yeah.
Jealous.
Yeah, you had to get the tearaway jeans, the zip offs.
Yeah. I was just watching, some hoops last night. Tearaways are back. I was telling Amy, I was like, gosh, I begged for a pair of tearaway pants. They were just the bee's knees.
I had them. Black Adidas.
I was so dumb. I had a pair of green Reeboks when I was in college that I would wear out because I thought I was cool. Not an athlete at all at that point in my life, but I was like, oh yeah, tearaways, still sweet. Don't ever wear them to bar. Like tearaways to a bar. That's just
inviting.
Yeah. I learned that lesson quick. Yeah, you're gonna want to leave them at home.
Me too moment there.
yeah, I did feel pretty vulnerable. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And how do you tell the bartender when he's like, "Hey, you got to get out of here. You're in your underwear," and you're like, "I honestly had pants like 2 minutes ago." Like, I swear it wasn't my fault, right? Like, nobody believes you at that point. Like, sir, you've obviously removed your pants. You've had too much to drink. Oh man, they ripped off my body. He's like, no, that's a far, far tall tale you're telling, sir.
They were kind of pain in the ass to button back up, though.
Yeah, they were.
Like after you tore them away, cool. You had to line them up and okay.
See, but then we did like you got the like couple buttons at the bottom, couple at the top, and then you have like the free flowing in the middle for warm-ups and things like that.
You had it down. You're more sophisticated.
Yeah, you had flow. That's what the kids call it, right? Major flow.
Something like that, yeah. I wasn't wearing a visor, but
you'll get there, man.
I did my best to fit it.
Yeah. You're never too old to visor it up.
I might have to look into that.
Bring back visors and LFO. That's summertime.
That is a good summertime feel.
Yeah, come on.
What's
Jeremy, you're just a hater, baby. You're a hater, bro.
No, I'm just thinking of being in my 1987 Buick Century with no AC, the windows down, cranking up KKCK to something like that,
Mhm.
brings you back.
Brings you right back, man. That's why you got to get the visor. Now, Nick, your kids are like old enough now where they can be in activities like 365 days a year. Like that's a thing
pretty
now.
close. Yeah.
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 How do you, I mean, as far as going through it now, how do you feel like as a dad who I don't know what my kids are going to want to do. They seem like chess club kids, but we'll figure it out. Like, would you recommend just jamming them full? They feel like they do well with that.
Yeah. And I think most programs are going to be, I don't know, they're going to be out there recruiting in a way, sending stuff home. Like we get little things sent home in their backpacks, like Mustang Hoops Club, for a week, right?
You should join that.
No. Yep. Well, Gunner's done that too. So we try to let kids, if it all makes sense, we try to let them entertain that, try it out. I've obviously brought the boys into wrestling at young ages, and I've with that I've kind of been sucked into coaching now. This will be my 9th year coming in already, which just goes fast, and it's very rewarding because of the relationships you meet with these other kids and just coach them along the way. It's very humbling, but my kids in particular haven't found the same really degree of success, but I keep telling them like it's going to be okay, right? It just comes at different times to everybody, and if you keep grinding and keep learning, you're going to be totally fine. And as emotional as that sport can be, and when you're coaching your own boys, it creates a really awesome opportunity in other sports, so other seasons, like when Connor's done baseball or Gunner's done baseball. I really get into that because I have nothing to do with that. I can just watch it as a fan, as a father, and just cheer them on. Same thing with Madeline and volleyball. That's just been killer. And seeing her genuine enthusiasm for that, that's pretty cool.
What's your fan intensity level? What do you rock?
Pretty chill.
Pretty chill.
Yeah. Pretty chill. It's so hard to get it wrapped up when kids are so young, and we have these debates, right? I mean, it's such a common debate to hear people talk about, parental intensity, parental stress levels with it, and how hard they drive their kids. And I think I've seen really, really good people kind of lean into that more and more. And I can understand why too, especially when your kid has some success and starts generating momentum, and then maybe something doesn't go their way, but I don't know. I have a really hard time taking it ultra serious until they get to like those high school levels.
Yeah, my son is he'll be 6 in July, so he's in soccer right now, and I am actually pretty impressed. Most of the parents out there pretty chill. Pretty good vibe out there. It's not like some of those sports where it gets pretty wild out there, and this is just through the city, so I think it's a little more laid back too versus like a soccer club. But
I think what I noticed with wrestling is as they get older, though, I'm just going to jump in one little tweak to that.
Go ahead.
So what I was able to start doing, just because you stay with the program long enough to get to know these kids, even before Connor was to this age. But a few years ago, I started going to our state wrestling tournament to coach up guys that were in like the 7th and 8th grade category. And even then, it's like there's an awesome level of just more chill. It was crazy how I'd gone to state like 5 years in a row, and then finally I go to this one and I'm coaching, and you can actually like hear other people talk, and it's not just a bunch of like overhyped parents, really emotional kids, screaming. And I think that
I don't even know what that means.
I fell in love with it. I'm like, man, I just love to coach that age group and on up, because there's just a more, I don't know. I think everybody's been through it enough. They're more experienced as a fan, as parents, and everything. They can be more even keeled. It's not so like immediate right in front of them. And for the life of me, it's hard understanding how people get so wrapped up in like a second grader, at this state tournament, these ages, like 8, 9-year-olds, and people just lose their heads. But you move a few years up, and it's like those intensity levels just drop. It doesn't mean they don't care any less. They're more reserved.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things progress through. He just started T-ball as well, so just stuff, man. It's just stuff all the time. But yeah, I am actually surprisingly high, like on the intensity level, like maybe because I'm not that experienced as a fan. But like I don't know. Yeah, I'm probably harder on my son than I need to be, but it's just weird, you just like sitting out there picking daisies. Like I struggle with that. Like, dude, get in the game, man. Like, like that stuff, and then there's like 2 or 3 other kids on the team just like sitting in the net and like there's a game going on and I'm just looking around like, am I the only, like, is this some sort of fantasy and I'm the only one that sees this?
But how old? 5?
How old is he? Yeah.
Yeah,
5.
5.
Yeah.
I mean,
Gosh, it's so young.
I know
I played 0 organized sports at 5.
I know, right? Like,
No,
when did you guys? That's my question for you guys. When did you guys start getting into like your main sports?
Wrestling had a pretty good following in Canby. So I think it was either 2nd or 3rd grade. They had some youth stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I made it through like 2 practices. I got slammed to the mat and I started crying and that was it. I was done.
Makes sense.
You're no Matthew Modine, I'll tell you that.
But then hoops.
No.
But then hoops was 4th grade. And that was like, and at that point though, it was like 4 Saturdays for an hour, 5th grade, we played 2 or 3 tournaments just regionally. So it was like not 365 days a year for sure. So
yeah. How about you, Case?
7th grade for me, that's when we had football. Football started in 7th grade, so that was my sport. And obviously we just played a season. I actually never went to a camp, never did any of that stuff. It was, I would say the kids that went to camps was definitely the minority for us. I remember between my junior and senior year, our coach was like, yeah, we want to do like a team camp where we take a bunch of you down somewhere and we play scrimmage, and like kids signed up for it. But we're a small team, right? 9 man. So we only had 4 seniors that were going into the coming season. None of the seniors signed up. And I remember our coach just chewed our asses out. Like, you guys need to be committed to this team. And it's like, it's my summer, man. I'm not going. Hey, and true, the camp was probably $100 or something like that. And like, honestly, that was a lot of money for our family. So it's like, dude, I don't feel comfortable asking my mom for $100, to go to a camp for 2 days or whatever it was. Probably just a day, I guess. I can't imagine we would have stayed over for $100. So 7th grade and just pretty much the season, man. And that was it for me. So that's why it's weird that like I have this weird intensity level with my 5-year-old, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a competitive guy in a lot of things I do, so it is weird. I need to learn to let go.
Yeah.
What about you doing?
Yeah.
We got into flag. We could do flag football in 4th grade. We did flag in 4th, 5th, 6th. And then, as Casey said, junior high full contact, 7th. Youth wrestling was really just, we called it Pee-wees back then, Pee-wee wrestling. And it was kind of just a 1-week program. We could culminate with a tournament each year. And you can start that. We kind of started that in like kindergarten, 1st grade. But again, it didn't really get super serious until 7th grade again. And I'm not going to say that's right. I think there's probably some balance in there. As probably should be driven ideally by the kid and how they're doing. Like if number 1, are they passionate about it?
Yep.
And then number 2, like, are they able to still be a good student and a good person? Like, are you raising a good person along the way? Good young man, good young lady. And then just, do it at some level too. The thing that I struggle with, my dad being on the farm, I mean, he didn't make it to a ton of stuff, at least until things got really serious. Like even until my junior and senior year, he didn't make it to many football games or wrestling events. And then he made it to more. He made his schedule to fit that. But I mean, so I have that in my background, and I do struggle with like, God, should I be taking off work so much to go in and watch my kid, right? Especially we don't really run into that so much with wrestling, but with football.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say yes too. I don't think my dad ever made it to a single game of mine. Just it sucked. I don't know. It's not like I played for him. Honestly, never really crossed my mind as a kid. But
like I have this weird vibe. Like you just become disconnected with that. Like you're saying, like I didn't do it for him, and maybe I should have. I don't know. Maybe he should have made it to more.
Yeah, I always wonder if I would have enjoyed it more too. Like, there's something about like scoring a goal or having a good play and like looking to the stands. And my mom made it to all the games and my grandparents did. But you know, it's just still that like you look out and you're like, that does kind of take away from it just a little bit, even though you're not playing for them.
I see it in our daughter. She looks to us a lot during volleyball. but here's the downside though. My son Gunner, like when he's wrestling, he's looking at me way too much.
Gotcha.
It's almost like too committed, right? And it's like, just go out and wrestle, just go have fun, make your own decisions, right?
Yeah, you talk about the investment in it, and you brought up an interesting thing, Nick, where you're like, oh yeah, you know, maybe get a little bit more intense once you have success. Like, what does that mean? What does, you know, when you look at that, what does that mean in youth sports? You know, it's crazy. You know,
shit. We give people shit if they're like a glory dayer for high school stuff, right?
Right.
So I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna carry around your like third grade, you know, Maba trophy?
I still have my Letterman's jacket. Maybe I should wear it next time.
You know, like I was talking to a patient about the same thing, like just randomly this week before we were kind of talking about like the format. And I always pull up these stats. Like they say that it's in different surveys. They say like 35% of parents think their kids are going to play pro.
No way. Really?
Yeah.
35%.
And you go, why do people get, you know, so frazzled in second grade? And
then what's the stat on, like, if you look at NFL, like when they talk about the percentage, like if you go all the way down and you break it down, it's like,
you know, NFL's probably it's actually one of the best ones. Like the numbers I found was like 0.025% make it to the 0.0077 is WNBA, 0.0096 is NBA, 0.16 is MLB. Like, you know, so you're looking at any level.
There's a variability there.
At any level, there's
so like, when I threw out I was way over on 10th of a percent. I was 4 times the number. I mean, that's crazy.
So you look at it, like high school athletes that play college, period, at any NCAA level, it's like, I think they round it out to like 5 or 6%. But then you have some sports that are like lacrosse, where it's like, if you play lacrosse in high school, you have like 12% or 15% chance to play in college. But then you get to some of the other ones, like, you get to some of the other ones like basketball, and it's like 3%, you know? So, you know, you like, I was having that conversation with him too, where it was like, well, what is success then? You know, like, hey, you win games, but I don't know. When I look back at athletics, it's like all the ancillary stuff. It is time with family, time with friends, you know, like the interactions that happen because of
team
sport.
Interaction and
accountability. I mean, it's less of a, gosh, like, do you remember when, you know, this play or this game? It's more like, you know, do you remember this practice where you fell on your face and we all laughed at you? You know, it's just like,
we still remember when one of my teammates crapped his pants during a practice.
People never forget. People never forget. Yeah, we were, you know, at the soccer game. It was one of the first games my son was at. Like, one of the kids was definitely the best player on the other team, and like every time he scored a goal, he'd come over like to the sideline. His parents were right by me, you know, and he'd be like, "That's, you know, 3. That's 3." Right, or that's 4, and like
really,
yeah. And well, it turns out like one of our friends was also on the team, and she was like, "Oh yeah, his parents give him $1 for every goal he scores." And I was like, "Oh man, that's not because I was like,
he's not picking dandelions though."
Yeah, well, I was thinking like with my son, like, man, I should like give my son $1 like every time he tries to help a kid up, you know, because these kids are falling all the time, and these kids are like, once they're on the ground, they're just kicking the hell out of them. You know, because they're just swinging legs. I'm like, man, you could teach kids better things. I don't think you should give kids money, period. But like, there should be other.
Funny.
Give them $1 for an assist. Those kids never pass.
You just went from ultra competitive to Mother Teresa in like 0.5 right there.
Yeah, which side are you on?
I want to turn my competitiveness into a positive. Like,
that's good.
Get out there and pick that kid up, right? Like,
pick those dandelions up.
Yeah, well, not the dandelions.
Weed this
like,
field.
Hey, pass it to the kid that never gets the ball. Here's $1. Like, you know, it's like these teaching moments. It's just weird at 5 that you're. But like, we had just score goals. That's what it's all about.
The last couple of years, I was coaching 8th grade girls basketball, and like we had 16 girls out on the team, and they wanted me to cut to 12 out here. And I'm like, even at that age, I go, gosh, that's a young, like,
why are they traveling? I mean,
no, it was just like, that's kind of what we do. We keep 12 people on the team. And I said, you know, with all due respect, I'm like, I'm not going to. I'm like, if they want to be at practice, I'm like, what a malleable age, you know, where you're like,
yeah,
that could just destroy somebody at that age, where it's just like, versus, hey, if you want to be on the team and you want to learn something and be here, then
doesn't mean you're going
doesn't mean you're going to play.
Right? You're not.
Yeah.
But
Doesn't mean you're going to play all the
I
time. But I'm like, why
what's
couldn't you be on the team? Why can't you?
One of the most damn impressive things I've seen in the last year was actually at the Bison Jackrabbits wrestling duel to close out their season this last year.
Yeah.
Back in February, and it was in Brookings, and it was senior day, and they honored, I think it was 6 seniors, and only one of those guys was starting this year, and he's the only guy who started in the last 2 years. Some of those guys were previous starters as like freshmen and sophomores and lost their spot, but stuck that shit out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that's impressive to go through, 4 or 5 years of college for some of them, and to have very minimal, opportunity to start and to, qualify for nationals, win championships, but yet you're still that committed to your team and helping others. I mean, that is so impressive to me.
Yeah, I get more and more.
Why would we start alienating them?
Yeah, I get more and more impressed with it too, like in other sports, like basketball now in college, like because the transfer portal now, it's so easy for these kids to ditch out. Like, same with football. Like, man, it's great that, like, I can't believe you're the backup quarterback for 3 years. Like that's playing for the team, and it's so easy. It was one thing back in the day where you just sat there disgruntled with your scholarship because you couldn't do anything, but like now it's like, that's pretty cool to see these 3-4 year backup kids that just contributed to the team the whole time and didn't see a ton of minutes. But
you can see value either way, right? I mean, you can see the other point. But I don't fault somebody if you're that competitive and you truly believe that you could be a starter somewhere and that's where you want to play, but you do it respectfully. I mean, I don't have a major issue with that either. I think it's gotten out of hand though pretty quickly, didn't it? I mean, it's only been, the transfer portal's only existed for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, if you look at the basketball transfer numbers, it's pretty crazy. And I'm not anti-transfer portal either. I think it's kind of crummy to tell a 20-year-old kid he has to stick with his decision he made at 17. If he's not happy, and it
or
is
when coaches leave and all those things happen, right? I mean,
coaches aren't committed, so I don't think the kids. I think it's gonna probably settle itself out once after a few years go by and kids see that, like, well, transferring, because the NDSU's had a lot of basketball kids transfer and to little to no success transferring somewhere else, less minutes, less points.
Do you think that helped?
You see that in football too. What's that?
Was that Jabril Cox that transferred?
Yep, and his brother Jazir just transferred too. I don't think it really helped Jabril very much.
I was gonna say I didn't think I heard much of him coming out of LSU.
Yeah, and I mean that was kind of a bum deal because he transferred to LSU right after they win a championship, and then they're just tanked. But maybe it bumped him up a few, but I don't know if there's many guys that I can think of that transferred and really went on to a ton of success. That USD kid, that Mooney kid in basketball, he transferred to, what was it, Texas Tech, and they didn't win, right? But they made it to championship, Final Four.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's cool, but that doesn't happen very often.
No, because usually, it's like usually, if the talent's there, you're gonna play. Unless it's like a rare case where you're like, hey man, like they just like we're stacked in front of you, like. But yeah, that was like a Stan Van Gundy quote at one point, was like, they said, well, what's one thing you wish you knew about the NBA? And I think it's very applicable to NCAA too, where it's like how talented the last guy on the bench is that never plays. Mm-hmm. Like how good this dude is, and or gal. But it's just like so much talent, like to play at a top tier school, and then it's just everyone's that good, everyone's that good.
Yeah, you got to be just like crazy more physically gifted than everybody else, or work way harder than everybody else, and then there's the rare people that have both of those things. But yeah, it's
the Christian Watsons.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then they better hope they don't get injured.
Yeah, I was going to do the other segue. Nick, you were in sports from such a young age. Did you feel like that ever predisposed you to injuries growing up? Being a young kid doing sports.
Are you asking that question?
Yeah, asking that question and segueing into our topic today.
Yeah. No, I don't think that contributed. Not at all.
Do you think it made you tougher?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's hard to answer because you don't know what you would have been like had you not.
Yeah,
because I was already so dang tough.
Yeah,
no, I was a
he was wearing cowboy boots too, Jeremy.
Ask my cowboy boots.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're ride tough, baby.
But you obviously get habituated contact. I mean, that's something that helps. And I mean, again, there's dynamics at play. I remember taking a like the worst ankle sprain I've ever had was on my right, my senior year of football. And it happened during our homecoming game. And I kind of missed the second half because of it, but we routed that team. And so it wouldn't have mattered. I wasn't going to play anyway. So I looked at it that way as like a blessing. And I rehabbed the heck out of that sucker for a week and didn't miss the next game. I mean, I was so worried about, I didn't want to lose my spot. We were a pretty competitive program where we were fairly deep at line. I mean, offensive, defensive line, that was where we were all a dime a dozen. Even if we were pretty good, you had a lot of people there. So, I mean, it was a good environment to keep pushing you forward. So, yeah, I mean, it did things like that. And I truly don't believe that led. I mean, I really haven't sprained my ankle since then.
Yeah, I
actually did it.
Yeah, I just wonder because we talk about obviously the chronicity of pain becoming more prevalent, right? And one of the ideas is that our society views pain differently now than we did 20, 30 years ago, where when we were growing up, or wrestling or whatever, you got hurt and walk it off, rub dirt on it, right? Nowadays, like, you fall and scrape your knee on the playground and you have to go to the nurse's office, you have to get it cleaned up and a Band-Aid, and you have to fill out an incident report, and your teachers have to talk to your parents about it. So
what a big sociologic shift.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're teaching people at a young age that pain's a serious event and you need to,
take care of it, take it seriously. Yeah.
It's like every ache and pain is like a big deal. So, it's just one of those things. I was wondering, like, from a young age, if you were like, oh yeah, I mean, that's because even sports take it a little different. And I'm not saying we don't need to be really vigilant with concussions, like, because that seems to be a pretty big deal. But
you can go overboard either way with anything.
Even sports, though, I feel like a lot of times has now gotten to the point where it's like, now let's get a trainer in, let's check every single thing out, making sure everything's okay, and maybe even need to get it cleared before you can play again on a sprained ankle or a sore back or something. So it's just an interesting mindset change.
Well, it's so rare this season to see Adam Thielen make that comeback. I mean, he rehabbed himself and kind of busted ass to get back for, like, I think it was the Rams game towards the end of the season, because they still want to make a run, and then he re-aggravated that ankle, but it's so rare to see that anymore anyways. Most guys, once they have what he had initially, they just get shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And before you know it, it's like week to week, and then all of a sudden they're like, they placed him on IR.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, so I think I still think, I don't know. I'm old school enough to think I respect the hell out of that, because, the likelihood of you doing excessive damage or taking it to a whole nother degree is pretty minimal.
Yeah. I just saw that article. I was at sports medicine with meniscus removal versus leaving the tear there, and showing like accelerated degeneration of the joint, right? Like, meniscus tears have the same degeneration as a normal non-tear joint, where anybody that went in and had their meniscus removed,
What a fallacy.
five
what a
times.
fallacy that's been promoted for decades.
You gotta repair your meniscus or take it out. Like, it was 5 to 12 times like the accelerated degeneration, at 1 year versus 5 years. And it was pretty high numbers. It's crazy. Like,
but then we can do a total knee later.
yeah, right. Business makes business, baby.
Case, wasn't that one of the factor, like a positive factor? Wasn't that an Adrian Lowe thing, like the teaching kids about pain, like early contact sports was a positive factor for being able to deal with that and in coping strategies too, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Some of those factors that like predispose people to chronicity,
was it predisposed? I'm gonna forget now, but like, was it that predisposes them to chronicity or the opposite?
I better not quote it. I would have guessed the opposite, but I'm not 100% sure.
I thought it was the opposite as well.
I think it's the opposite.
Yeah,
because
maybe I'm just
himself,
biasing my confirmation, but
we'll have to put it in the comments later.
Because he himself talks about his I remember him telling a story and an anecdote about him growing up in South Africa and playing with snakes and rolling in the dirt all the time. And he also tied it to the immune system. Yeah. So, I mean, I do think there's something there, obviously. I mean, you're creating all your mental framework at those young ages too.
Yeah, and we've carried it now into adult life too with work injuries and things, you hurt your back, like here's like the 20 steps you need to go through to make sure your back's going to be okay to return to work. And and we wonder why disability is higher now than it's ever been. And, I don't think it's because I don't think it's because society's gotten soft. I just think we just don't get the right message, and we've created a lot of fear, and it's just built on itself, right? Nobody wants to get sued. People are afraid of developing chronic pain because it's becoming more of an epidemic. Okay. So
back up a second. You truly don't think society's gotten soft? Not even a little?
Well, and again,
throwing those guns, boy.
I don't.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. And maybe soft is a weird terminology, but I really don't think people nowadays want to be on disability more than they did 20, 30 years ago.
I think they do. I think again, the sociological construct of what it means to contribute in society is completely shifted. And people are now, we've normalized so many abnormal behaviors where now people are like, yeah, shit, I'll stay home. I'll stay home and collect that. I don't need to do that.
Well, and I think there's probably a lot more to that than just, pure mindset. I think they're just talking about on the radio too, of like the amount of people that like live with their parents now is like such a huge number.
Yeah.
And, people 20 to 30 or 20 to 35, like the amount of folks in that age group not working now is way higher than it's ever been. And it's like, well, is it because they don't want to work, or is like the motivation to work just not there? Like,
does it matter? I mean, that's really semantics to me. And I think it's still, the root is still the same. We've shifted what the expectations are.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I kind of get, I don't get where it is because I've done lots of free work, and that's, I think we would all agree why we've all gotten to where we are in our careers, because we've done above and beyond for no guarantees on anything, right? I mean, that's you bust your butt because you bust your butt and you take pride in what you do. But
maybe that's why we're at where we're at.
Yeah, 100%.
I think so. Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like, society is just making it, I think, harder and harder for people to get to that point. You bust your butt for an entry level job. For me, when I started out, $850 was enough to have an apartment and eat food and like make it. I mean, it wasn't a great life. I was living on ramen, but I had an apartment. Like, it's pretty tough now. I mean, Fargo, a studio apartment's going to cost you $1,000 a month now. I mean,
sure.
Like,
but you also raise, I mean, that goes down a whole nother conversation related to, the old adage, does money actually make you happy too, right? And if you're the type of person who's wired to be like depressed and have problems, even if you make money and you can take care of yourself, you're still going to be depressed and have problems. I mean, studies show that too.
Yeah, and I don't deny that factor. And that's why I think like those people now versus those people 20 years ago weren't working. I don't think that's changed much. But I think just the entry level to like bust your butt at a job and take pride into it and feel like you have a chance to get better is harder and harder for people. Man, I see it with even PT students. Like, man, you come out with a DPT with $150,000 in debt and you're going to make $70,000 a year. Like, that's, even with your doctor,
Wish somebody would have told me,
even with your doctorate, like, man, you're going to have to work pretty hard to get a house, you're going to really have to manage your money.
Have to wait a little bit.
Yeah, you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to manage your money. It's not like our parents who probably bought a house when they're 19, 20 after they had a job and, you got a loan and you got a house. Like, I was pretty motivating. Now it's like, well, I can bust my butt, get a crappy studio apartment and not have anything, or I can live in my parents' basement and my parents will support me because they've made it, right? Once you have money, it's easier to make money. It's just different mindset, and some of it is like, I don't know how you change that. I don't know how we get back to there.
I think, yeah, I think our parents like were grinders too.
I'll say, I'm gonna,
like we didn't have
ask you, but my dad worked he'd work me under the table when he was in his prime versus where I'm at. I'm gonna like that's real. Like, and I'm not saying it's all wrong either, like to, have technological advance and stuff, but I do think generation by generation by generation, we've seen that happen. Like that work ethic's just gradually whittled down. Go ahead,
and I
Jared.
think I was just going to say, I think like when we look at, like, shoot, we had such a huge garden, we canned, like us, like kids worked in the garden too, it's like, it was like we went without a lot of things. We didn't have I got a lot of socks for Christmas. We didn't get PS5s, it's like, like so much of like, I even, like I was telling you that the other day, Nick, like sometimes it's so easy to get caught up and just be like, oh man, like this is so hard, this is so hard, this is so hard. And then it's like, man, like really blessed in a lot of ways. And I think back to like what my parents made for a family of 7. Ooh. But like, I don't know how they did it, and it's like, but I didn't like ever want for food, but they obviously made sacrifices too, so that we didn't have to do that. Right. Like, I don't think it was just like, oh, it's because they made $8.50 an hour and that was enough. It was like, they made so many sacrifices. And so we look at it now and they're like, oh, we made it. They made it. They've got a new truck. They've got a new house. They've got a boat. They've got a cabin. But there's also 25 years in there, 30 years in there where they were grinding and like giving up a lot of things.
Lean. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not saying like inflation's not real. I'm not saying that that's not real either, but I think it's pretty easy to get caught up in that trap to be like, well, why do I have to work so hard for this little? And it's like, everyone wants to make more money, and I'm not saying hard work solves everything either, but it's like
a lot.
Creativity, problem solving, being able to, I like my toughest thing with the whole, gosh, we're getting the weeds here, but my toughest thing with the whole like forgive student loans thing is like, I have friends that spent $5,000 a year in college to go to Cancun on spring break, and it's like, right, I've got all these student loans. It's like, you also lived it up. You bought new flat screens when you were in college. Like,
and I'm not gonna say that I didn't spend money on dumb shit either.
Visors.
Trunks full of them.
Yeah.
I will agree with both of you on the fact that I think instant gratification is a problem in society. And I don't know, that for sure is 100% a problem. And I remember that when I was in grad school, we talked about, we had a few folks in our class that were pretty political, and Obamacare was kind of becoming a thing, and they were talking about how devastating it was as a student to have to pay your own health insurance, because back then you couldn't be on your parents' health insurance yet. At our age we had to have our own, and I had like a crappy Cobra plan or whatever for $70 a month. It was catastrophic. I mean,
if
I got sick, I sure didn't go to the doctor, but I mean, if I got hit by a car, I was okay.
Same.
And I remember there was people in our class complaining about the cost of healthcare, but they were all driving new vehicles. It's like, what's that monthly payment on your Prius? Like, that's what, $300 a month back then, $400 a month. Like,
probably higher than that.
yeah, don't complain about the cost of healthcare if you're driving a new car. Like,
yeah.
So there is some of that.
Inconsistencies there. Yeah.
There's definitely some of that in society, but
and I'll stay away from the money topic. And I know we got to shift into some of this actual rehab talk.
This is lifestyle medicine. This is what fires Jeremy up.
No, I mean, it is real world stuff. And I do have a line here that's tied to one of my lessons learned from an injury. And that's that when I'm contributing, when I'm at my busiest, and you kind of sometimes feel like you're overloaded, right? But that's when I don't know, I feel like I rise up, I feel like I dial it in more, and I in turn am happier. Actually, I'm less happy when I'm less busy. And that's just me, and I know that's a heavy internal bias, and I sometimes I'm guilty of extrapolating that out broadly. But I do think there's a lot of immense benefit to people just freaking working their ass off. Rest where you need to, and then work your ass off.
You should still go to your kids' games, though.
Yeah, I do. I do. But when you look at it, like, I missed one football game last year, and it was just like this brutal. Like, it was like you have to take off at noon and all this stuff on like a Tuesday, and I don't know. There was some important stuff going on, but I look back and I'm like, is he really gonna, like, that one 7th grade game you didn't make it to?
No, you won't remember that. No.
And I do think, even like, again, with my kids too, even at the young age too, I think there's like a learning moment for them too, to be like, hey, dad's like, yeah, hey buddy, I can't make your game because people are depending on me. Work's gotta, there are certain things like
this is my way of taking care of my family too, right?
And that's why I tell them, like, this is how I support you guys, and there's a lot of people that depend on dad to do some things, and it's not gonna miss a ton of them. It's not that they're more important than you, but some things have to shift around. Like, I mean,
you said that. Yeah. And it's not always going to be that. I look at it too, man. I'm in this for the long haul, right? So I can't tear through all my goodwill or leadership equity right now with like 7th grade football for my oldest son. I mean, we have 3 more kids coming through, and what's going to happen? I mean, what's my professional life going to look like when I'm, when he's in varsity sports, if he gets, if he stays with that level.
We'll be replaced by AI by then. We'll be on universal basic income.
We'll mostly just be full-time podcasters by then. So, I mean, we can
that'll solve all of our problems.
Yeah, we can just do this on the road if we have to.
Yeah. So let's get on this topic. I know, God, we've really spun out, and I hope our listeners actually got something out of this, maybe.
We're getting hateful comments after this episode.
I want to get to know you guys a little bit here, because I know Casey keeps asking me about injuries, but Casey, Jeremy, like, what's a major injury that you've sustained and you've kind of either rehabbed yourself through or went through a process of rehab?
I take great care of my body, Nick. I have had 0 injuries. Really, I
Buffalo wings.
Yeah, dealing with an injury right now in my stomach. No, I would say probably the 2 things I've learned. I've just dealt with a little low back pain. Started in the hospital, just lifting big patients in rehab dumbly when you start out your career, and you feel like you owe it to these patients to get them up and work on standing, work on walking, and when they're max assist at 400 pounds, that's a lot of weight. So develop, yeah, right. Developing, it's not like we had lifts and a lot of extra staff to come help these people up. So I wasn't going to sit there and do long arc quads with somebody that was 400 pounds for 10 sets of 20. Like, let's stand in the parallel bars. Like, we got to get some weight through you. We got to get you confident. That led to some back pain at those times, and like now throughout the years, 12 years, once or twice a year I get up a bout of back pain that I would say is more significant, where we're talking about 6, 7, 8 out of 10 pain with some ridiculous pain at times. But I would say it's interesting, and go on, Jeremy. It seems like you have something you want to say.
I was just curious if there were trigger points involved.
0 trigger points. I've never once
okay.
treated it with a foam roll. I've never used a Theracane on it. But you know,
which is trash anyways.
I would say that, you know, the interesting part though, I would say in the last 3 years probably of my career, I've managed my low back pain way better than 5-10 years ago when I had bouts of back pain. Now when my back pain starts up, it goes away within a day or two, you know, with some just active movement. I load the heck out of it at work between patients. And you know, I load up and I do lifts and chops, and I get on the chair, I do lumbar extension with a ton of weight. You know, a lot different than I did 10 years ago, where I took ibuprofen and iced it between patients and you know, did that stuff, you know. And it's been kind of cool to see how my body's responded way faster just with like loading. Like if my back hurts, like the number one thing I tell my wife is like, I got to get to the gym tonight. Like I have to go to the gym tonight, because I know I can load it up and by tomorrow it's going to feel better. Where, like I said, 10 years ago, it's like, oh, my back's killing me. Like, I just want to lay down. I got to rest it. And I thought too, like, I lifted too heavy of a patient and my back's hurting now. Like, I got to let it heal. And now when my back hurts, I'm like, it's just telling you overdid something, you know. It was applicable because like Tuesday, my daughter was homesick. So I stayed home with her all day and we just kind of snuggled on the couch because she wasn't feeling good. And like, man, like that night, my back started killing me, like to the point where I got on the floor, was doing prone press ups, lumbar rotation, anything I could
Hear
to
that,
just
Jeremy McKenzie stuff.
Motion through there.
So
I also
good.
did knees to chest, Jeremy, and those actually felt way better than the prone press ups.
Weird.
Yeah, and same with standing flexion.
I don't mind. I don't
touching
mind
my toes.
McKenzie now and again though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some people
I'm
feels
just-
right, but
I need to get vertical. Yeah.
I would just call it, you know, directional preference and leave it at that.
yeah, I'm fine with
Keep
it.
the dogma at home.
Anyways, like, so yesterday at work, I was pretty sore. But then today it was fine. Like I barely even feel it. So, you know, it's one of those things that I just heal. I feel like I heal faster, and I'm not in as good a shape as I was 10 years ago. So that's kind of cool.
Either.
You know, the other thing, when I had my gallbladder out, you know, I was that was kind of a wild deal. And I gotta say, man, I tried doing like scar mobs on myself, those little scope sites. That was way more uncomfortable than I thought. When I used to tell my patients, "What the hell out of that thing? Like, it's just scar tissue, it won't hurt." I was wrong. That sucker, like, especially those abdominal scars, when I started working on them, like instantly that like systemic response of like nausea and like, it was crazy. I was like, I'm so sorry everybody I ever told to just dig the hell out of those things, because that was miserable.
Well, you got it. I think there's value to it because I had an appendectomy when I was like 13 and I never touched the scar like ever. And then I got into therapy school and I started like, learning about scar mobs, and I'd do something, it would like sting all the way around it.
Yeah.
But now it's like completely asymptomatic. But I went like, jeepers, like 13, 14 years without touching it. And then you go to move it and you're like, holy crap, this is like really uncomfortable, like you're saying. And then you get after it, you do it enough, maybe it just desensitized tissue too.
Yeah, whatever it is. And I mean, I kept working on it too, because I was like, man, I'm sure this is like, it shouldn't hurt to palpate scar tissue, right? I mean, it just should be normal scar tissue. I mean, it shouldn't be painful. So I mean, I worked through it. It's fine now.
So you've been fairly blessed.
I would say 100%.
Clean ledger.
Very, very little injuries throughout my career. So been good. Yeah. So that's why I always just tell people, suck it up. Like, you can't hurt that bad.
What about let's go to the big man with you had a jacked up ankle that
bigger they are, the harder they fall. They say.
Grapefruit in there.
You know, gosh, I think I was thinking through it too. I've been like, I feel like pretty blessed too in terms of injuries. Yeah, my left ankle, like that's probably been the extent of it, just like some chronic sprains for that. It's always been self rehab. I mean, just letting the healing process take place. And then in terms of I try to integrate that into what little training I do now. But a lot of single leg work, and it's paid off for me. I'd say with Casey too, you get the occasional low back pain stuff, but again, it's nothing that's.
What do you do when you feel something? What do you do?
I would just say move. I don't necessarily like. I'm not like jumping to load it up, but just moving, walking, stretching. No Mackenzie. I don't do
Makes
that.
sense. Yep.
But
Williams flexion guy, I get
it. No, it's just it's just a lot of movement. I mean, not a big foam roller guy. I don't know. I'll use it if my mid back feels tight a little bit. But yeah, I can't even say like I have a single go-to thing. It's just move. So.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think about that. Like I think about that too. Is it just like what makes that, right? Like you talk about framework and you know, the psychological side of it. Is it just because we're like, yeah, this isn't a big deal, it's gonna be fine, and it is.
Yeah.
You know,
the fact that we know to do
it's not serious.
it's safe.
Just move.
And it helps you understand. I think it's important to know the differential, right? To help you differentiate when you do have something serious.
Yeah.
Because you've been through these mild, bouts, and then when something does actually happen, like you're okay, maybe I got to do something a little bit more with this one.
Yeah.
I will say, usually I like always have students with me, so I will have them like mob and manip my back. But again, it's the framework of once they do that, then I make them go see my patients, and then I just sit on the functional trainer and rotate, deadlift, do all the movements, just try everything.
Make them see my patients.
Yeah. So I will say I've had my students work on me, and again, it's not because I think like, oh yeah, you gotta push a disc back, or you gotta manip me to make me feel better. But I do know like that's gonna give me a good like 20-30 minute window where I'm gonna feel better. So I'd rather do that than hammer out ibuprofen and acetaminophen. Those are kind of my go-tos. I'm not a pharmacist, for those listening. That's just what I like to do. But if I do have to take pain pills, but pretty minimal, I would say, pain med wise. I don't know. You guys ever take pain pills? I mean, I don't need to know.
I'm an ibuprofen guy. Like,
it's
off and on.
Ibuprofen is rare for me.
Yeah, it's
really,
gotta be
really rare.
Pretty bad for me. Like if I'm still hurting by like 2-3 in the afternoon, I might take one just to finish my day out. But yeah, like I said, I like to mix ibuprofen and acetaminophen. That's again not a pharmacist, but look on the research on that. Works pretty solid. But yeah, definitely try to avoid that. I'm definitely not like a get up sore, take pain meds guy. I'm like, I'm gonna try to tough my day through as much as I can. And if it starts to get worse throughout the day, just to finish, because I know I'm not gonna go home. Again, we talk about that mindset. Like, I'm not gonna go home at 1:00 because my back's sore. But I also like am not gonna hobble around my patients. So I will take it once in a while just to mask that. But
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Bowling, you've obviously got the best story here.
Yeah, probably because you started sports at such a young age. But
that's it. Too much wear and tear, right?
Your fragile body can only take so much.
That's it.
You just kept filling that cup up until everything exploded.
More like I'm a potato on toothpicks. Just trying to stay upright.
Problem.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was actually one of them that I was referencing here goes back to about 2009 when I had a left lumbar radiculopathy situation that actually was severe enough to have my foot drop for a while. And I had some pretty dark days with that. But I was lucky to have some therapists here in the clinic who could help me like on lunchtime. And I did lean into some extension based stuff simply to get vertical because I had a hard time even like moving to neutral spine, neutral hip position. But
that one foot drop like constant? Where did that come and
go? I still got a little bit like when I run, a little bit L5. And Yeah, it was kind of, that kind of freaked me out for a while.
Yeah, I've always wondered that. Like, did you just like Kill Bill where you just stared at your foot and you're like, move towards me?
I
And it just like I was
Yeah, I noticed it
like
when
I've never experienced anything like that.
well,
I've bet
when it was it okay, it wasn't severe enough to where if I was unloaded laying supine, I could move it, right?
Mhm.
But you'd move it down into like short sitting. Now it almost feel like it was work. I was like, God, it's work to raise my foot. It's just a dumb concept to even
Mhm.
fathom. And then, but it was most noticeable when I walk, and it like almost tripping myself up. That was very frustrating, scary.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it's a lot better now, But for a while, I was very nervous about it. Definitely unloaded that. And maybe that was a, who knows? Maybe you could say 10 years later, 12 years later, that was a contributing factor to my quad rupture. Maybe I was just perennially weak on my left side and predisposed myself. No, but I don't prescribe to that. I think that's a bunch of shit. It was just a fluke injury, wildly fluke injury. It happened last summer. And the only singular precipitating factor I can even think of is that throughout the course of the summer, and this is just a maybe, I was leaning into some overtraining. I was usually doing 2 workouts a day where I'd like do some cardio based stuff in the morning and then weights in the evening. And definitely was overdoing that. But again, just chalk it up to a fluke injury. So the quad rupture happened playing football on July 31st. Surgery happened on August 5th. I think I started therapy about a week and a half later. And a big shout out. We like our shout outs here. So shout out Ryan Landberg, who we had on here as a guest. He was my evaluating therapist. He did an awesome job kind of getting me up and getting my quads to fire again, get some range of motion going. And then I had some really excellent care from Kirsten Burley and Ashley Holm, who really helped to guide a lot of those subsequent treatments and pushed me where I needed to be pushed. I mean, that was what I really needed from those guys. And it was a unique situation because every one of them were people that I hired and that I trained at some level and mentored along at some level. So now you're looking at them to treat you just like any other patient. And that's I totally respect the situation that they're in and how maybe uncomfortable that can be too.
What do you want to do today?
A lot of it was, what do you want? What do you want to do, Nick? And it was like, and expecting that, I generally have like 2 things. I'd say these are the 2 things that I'm kind of thinking of, but otherwise it's up to you. Otherwise it's your call. Tell me what you think I need.
Did you have a protocol after surgery?
Yeah.
Did you stick to it?
Most
accelerated it a little bit.
Yeah, chances of your surgeon listening are low.
But what I learned with this, so you raise a great point. What I had was pretty rare, right? These things don't happen all the time. They're not nearly as common as an ACL. There's had tons of people on the community and in church who were just asking me like, "Oh, did you blow your ACL?" I'm like, "Not exactly. It's a little different." And
so
what
this
I
is a
found
way more manly injury.
Yeah, no. Do you see my cutoff?
Yeah, I'm wearing a cutoff. You think I just blow my ACL out?
But the difference is that if you're
sleeveless,
you can overdo overdo things when you're rehabbing the ACL, right? They can push too hard and they can create inflammation, and that can down the chain affect the graft's adherence, right? I mean, there's some studies that support that. When you're literally repairing connective tissue though, and then you go to work it, that was very ingrained in my head that the harder I work that stuff, then the likelihood goes up much higher that I could re-injure it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be more staggered, more of a phased approach. So that was a big difference I learned. I had to pull back a lot, much as I wanted to.
Yeah. Did you get to that point where you're like, man, I like, because I get that sometimes with ACL patients where they're like, dude, it feels great. Like, let's rock and roll. And you're like, man, like, we got to respect the tissue healing. Like, or did your body give you pretty good, like, don't do that, Nick?
Yeah, no, my body was always telling me, man, it's not the strength. The strength component was always very, very much in my head. You're hyper aware of that. And range of motion took a while. I mean, especially for me, I've never had issues with mobility. So to be in that situation and have such a stark contrast right to left, it was, like, let's take care of those things. So that was easier to manage, at least mentally.
I always wonder, like, from your perception with range of motion, like, did it feel like tissue restriction versus guarding versus like just pain, like, or
Very
was
little
it, could you
pain.
tell,
Very
like,
little pain. It would manifest itself as pressure sometimes, especially like in the back of my knee. So I equated that to edema in there.
yeah.
Intercapsular edema still present in there. But never along, like those guys were always great about asking me like, is that too much? Are you feeling it about your tendon? I'm like, no, I'm getting, and I tell them, I'm like, knee to the quad, right? Like midpoint. And then I definitely where they helped me a lot was getting me prone, applying a little bit of relative hip extension to get my hip flexors mobilized too, because my left hip flexor got so freaking jacked after I had to be in a lock brace for 8 weeks coming out of that sucker. And anytime I was upright outside of therapy, not doing my exercises. So that's, I mean, and I still walked a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was peg legging a lot. And then that's uncomfortable. I mean, that's probably after the first 3 or 4 days post-surgical, that's where I had all my pain was in my hip flexor on the left.
And that's the same side you had sciatic issues on.
Yep.
So it was already probably a sensitized side to that peg leg motion.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah. But that was, I think, again, I mentioned this earlier. I think I had, when I was in the throes of that thing, my mood was, I look back and fairly high because I had goals, right? And I had things I wanted to shoot for and accomplish. And I think first, in a weird way, it was a blessing that way. Like I go back, I do better when I have a very, linear process to follow. And I can go and chase those goals. I did learn, I learned firsthand, and I've shared this with patients too, you have to commit to your therapy. And you got to be the one who takes ownership over it. Like I shouldn't expect those other guys, as much as I love those guys and care about them. I shouldn't expect them to care about my knee as much as I do. Like there's not one single person on this planet that should care about it as much as I do. So I had to do everything I could to kind of to manage that.
I like that.
That's a great point.
I preach the same thing to my patients. I'm like, and I try not to, every now and again, I'll use that as an anecdote to kind of explain, like I have empathy for them and what they're experiencing, but at the end of the day, it's like, man, I really need you to take the ownership on this. Like you're the one who needs to care the most.
I'm going to use that as an anecdote now.
You're going to fake an injury?
My friend Nick says.
Yep.
No, I like it. I really do. And I remember you saying, like, not that long after the fact, like when you were pretty like in the thick of it, it's like, wow, like just like the mental shift and the increase in empathy for what people are going through too. Like you're just like, it was just like a recommittal to the process, because you can get into the, day-to-day grind and rut and this is the spiel I give and da 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 and But then when there's a lot of empathy now. I mean, I had issues. Like I've told people, like when you're in a lock brace like that, and let's say you got to go number 2, right? There's a process to even getting yourself into that situation. And then you better damn sure make sure your right leg's strong enough to do a single leg squat up off the toilet when you're done.
I would poop my pants. 100%.
Okay. Casey would poop his pants.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
I don't have the time to deal with a brace. That's a byproduct of the gallbladder though. So
yeah, things like anxiety in the shower. I mean, just like this fear of falling, slipping. Like we talk about irrational things, but temporarily there for a while, it was like, oh my God, there's maybe just too much soap on this floor.
Yeah.
Did you get into any of that, like with like return to sport, like return to hopping, jumping?
Yeah.
Did you run into any blocks that way?
Once I got past running though, with just the time frame, we were already in like 3.5 months of therapy. Mm-hmm. By the time I was cleared, actually right at 4, And I just really wanted to be able to run. That was my thing. So all the higher level stuff, like the hopping, the agility stuff, that stuff I've done more independently. And I'm still continuing to trying to do as much unilateral as I can to bring some symmetry back in.
Yeah.
Great point. I mean, and I was joking with some guys earlier. I'm like, maybe I was losing that before though. I mean, I don't know what my expectations are anymore at all.
Yeah. No, it's like, that's always been one of the craziest things is like, again, ACL more common, but where you can have somebody have like all the tools to do it. And then there's just that block there, it's just, that's a traumatic thing to go through, You hear athletes over and over and over again, like talk about the dark days of rehab, and they're not rehabbing twice a week or once a week. They're doing it all day, every day.
Yeah, full-time
getting
job.
every possible treatment, and they're still like, man, this was so hard to go through, and just crazy. Yeah.
I'm gonna do some jumping tomorrow with our elite class. I'm gonna do some of that, obviously, to demo and kind of work in, take advantage of that.
Yeah, I have to say, when we talk about like pain experiences, I've obviously talked to you about this, and it's like I was playing soccer with my son after a game, and like I was obviously just cutting his ass up out there on the field. I mean, just crossing,
slice and dice, baby,
yeah.
Chop, chop, chop.
And yeah, there was one time where I hit just a killer move on him, and my knee like kind of gave that little like how you kind of had mentioned prior to your injury, where it was like, ooh, that was a weird feeling. But like, instead of being like, well, yep, that's fine, it would probably just twist it, like I was like, we're done, son. Like I should
like all those you're talking about the near slips I've told you about
in your Sanooks.
My Under Armour boat shoes.
Well, I had my stupid work loafers on, so I was like, we're done with soccer for today.
I mean, I look back and it was literally like we're playing in the dark. It's wrapping up and it's like the I can't even make this up. The last play, like we're gonna do this one final play and then we're gonna head in.
I'm going deep.
And I'm gonna cut.
Yeah. This is touchdown city. You were the cop that was gonna retire tomorrow and just got shot, huh? That was you. Yep. Oh God.
One day from retirement.
Dang.
But when we're going back to like those minor injuries, and when you have that type of habitual mindset that this is minor and I can get through it, when something serious happens, that's an eye opener.
Yeah,
it's like I knew laying in that wet grass, I'm like,
no,
this is not good. Like, this is not like your dumb little weekend flub up that you'll limp off for a couple weeks and you're gonna be fine. Like, you can't move your leg.
Yeah, I was like, it's not worth it. Kick the ball into the net yourself, son. You're doing good.
Well, let's talk
some dandelions over there.
And that's why I don't go on vacation.
We gotta go on vacay, baby.
Yeah, Nick's knees vacay ready now.
Yeah, you can sit in the shallow end of the pool and get margaritas all day. That's easy.
Ooh,
that's easy. So
you could have did that with a brace on.
Yeah, definitely would have been a good idea.
Mental therapy.
So we are on to the top five. And this week is our top 5 vacation experiences that we each partake in. So I guess I feel like I've been going last lately. I can go first. I can go kick some off here and
do it, man.
Lay the framework, boys.
Yeah, let's finish with Jeremy today. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I was going to be in the sandwich.
No, it's going to get weird if we keep doing
You're
that.
always in the sandwich.
Yeah. Time to try a bun out, son. Too much meat. Too much meat.
To shift this. Yeah. I don't think we've laughed enough. All right. Number 5 was a destination wedding of my good friend Ryan Zink from back Carrington now. Was living in Colorado. They got married. Him and his wife Sarah got married at Turks and Caicos, which is just one of the most beautiful places on God's green earth. This was 2009. Fully inclusive. We stayed at Beaches Resort, which is a more family-friendly version of Sandals. It's like Sandals, right? Family-friendly. cool place. So great time. Again, we got some snorkeling in, got to see some sharks from afar. That was pretty cool.
Zip lining?
Did not zip line on this one.
Smart.
No.
Don't.
It was a little bit more regimented being in a, I was a groomsman in this wedding. So you gotta, there's certain things you gotta do. Not a lot, but there was just some things we had to do from a time frame standpoint. So
where would you have you maybe you'll get to this. Have you ever snorkeled or like scuba dive?
Snorkeled many times, yeah.
What's your stance on eels? Was it like snakes of the sea?
I'm not, I'm less, eels aren't cool, but for some reason they freak me out less than like
ever since Little Mermaid. Yeah, I'd rather see an eel than a snake on top of the water.
Yeah, they're too fat. I think they're too fat and thick. They don't scare me quite as much, but they're ugly buggers. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I had a student who was like, they were going on a honeymoon and they were planning this honeymoon, and his wife to be was like, we gotta go snorkeling. And this kid's like,
do the scuba.
He's like, dude, I'm definitely afraid of eels. And I'm like, what? He's like, they have giant teeth. Like I'm like, for sure a snail, an eel will bite me. And I'm like, dude, nobody has ever been bitten by an eel, right?
And they get electrocuted.
Yeah, we're like 6 weeks into a 12-week thing, and my patient is a scuba diver. And we're talking about it. She's like, that's funny, you should mention that. She's like, I got bit by an eel. And she pulls up her pant leg, and she's got a scar that's like 3 inches by 3 inches.
Oh,
she's
okay.
like,
so now we're gonna take these eels seriously.
Yeah, she's like, it took a chunk out of her. And then because of all the blood in the water, sharks everybody had to get out. Yeah, everybody got the from the sharks.
All
so
right, well,
yeah, be afraid. That's a new fear for
you. It's still my number 5 vacation though. Turks and Caicos,
I like it. I like it.
Sometimes curious about your phobias. So
I might lean into one later.
They don't have eels in Green Bay. Fun fact.
Ooh.
They don't.
I guess the Turks and Caicos probably like 3,000 miles from Green Bay.
Only one way to know.
Producer Jeremy.
So that
I'll produce that one.
That was your number 5 then?
That's my number 5.
Yeah, my number 5 actually is New York City, New York. My wife used to go there for work quite a bit, so I tagged along one weekend with a buddy, and his wife also worked with my wife, and they both went there. So we flew a flight and did a long weekend there. And it was surprising to me. Like, I kind of thought I would hate New York, just being like small town North Dakota. New York's like the exact opposite. But it was a blast, man. That city is alive. There's so much to do there. It was so fun. It helped that my wife had been there multiple times for work. So like they knew these cool restaurants. Every little building, has like 5 or 6 restaurants in it. It's just a wild thing. We took a boat tour around the island. That was pretty cool, just to like kind of take in how big New York is / how small New York is. When you talk about 10 million people or whatever, probably up to 15 million now, in such a actually not a huge area. When you ride a boat around it, you're like, oh, that's crazy. All these people are living here. Central Park was cool. That's way bigger, I guess, than I imagined it could be. I mean, we spent like half a day there and didn't touch half the stuff there. 9/11 museum, super powerful. Not a big emotional guy, but I cried in public. So there's some things there that hit you pretty hard if you're not ready for them, and I didn't know much about it. People do things different there, though. I know my wife had vendors there, so we met them at the bar one night. People don't drink there like we drink here, though, because we got there, me and my buddy were like, well, let's do it up. Like we went to beers. Get some beers, right? Like we went to a barcade. So we had like
$36 beers.
Yeah, beers were like $8 or something, and we had like 4 or 5 beers while these people like showed up, and they're like, I can't believe your husbands are drinking so much. And we're like, we're playing it cool, if I'm gonna be honest. Like these beers are $8,
You don't know.
Like literally everybody we were with just bought like a whiskey Coke, which was like $15, and they never touched it. Like they just put it in front of them.
Interesting.
It was also one of my saddest moments because it was a barcade, and I have an arcade at home, and I had been practicing Donkey Kong for like a month because I was like,
original?
Yeah.
For that moment?
Yeah. I'm like, dude, I think because we had talked about going to a barcade because that was before Fargo had one, and I just loved arcades. So I was like, dude, I'm gonna try to get on the leaderboard on that sucker. So I practiced and and I got pretty solid at Donkey Kong. I was too drunk at the bar. I could not make the leaderboard. It was very disappointing. It's like I couldn't get past the third screen.
And they shipped your ass back to North Dakota.
Yeah, then I started
box.
wandering the streets in New York at about 3 a.m, looking for a slice of pizza. That was, you talk about goals, Nick. Mine was like street vendor pizza. You know, like I always think of, maybe you guys weren't big into this movie, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the live action, the first one, like when the movie starts, like every 5 seconds they show these giant ass pizza slices. I was like, I need one of those, and then maybe end up in the sewer later. I don't know.
I don't think that.
I didn't find pizza. I didn't
You
get
might find
robbed.
some other ooze in the sewer, but
yeah. So yeah, New York. That's my number 5. It's a blast. I felt super safe there too, which was fun. Like I thought I would be, you know, like getting mugged, but I'm drunk at 4 a.m, wandering the streets. And yeah, just came home with my wallet. So it was a great trip. Recommend.
I'm not as high on New York City.
I'm not. I used to want to, but it just hasn't been there for me for a while.
I've been there once, and Doling, I almost put Chicago on there. That could be an honorable mention.
That was like a work trip, though.
It was. It wasn't really a vacation, but we had a good time there, and a lot of good food. That was the first time I ever learned about.
Casey talked about pizza, but remember that was my goal. Like we had to hit up, like we had to eat deep dish, we had to eat Chicago or hot Italian beef, and
Gene and Jude's.
We had to eat Gene and Jude's. We had to get dogs.
Pizza.
Yeah, it was so good. Everything was so good.
Guys, I went nostalgic for my number 5. When we were, I had to be like 7 years old. We took a trip out to Yellowstone in the Black Hills. That was my number 5. It was pretty dang cool. We didn't vacation a lot as kids, so going multiple states over. We took like a 2-week trip and stayed in this crappy pop-up camper. Recently, I'm not a camper either. That's like full disclosure. And my parents were out visiting, and I was like, "Did you guys enjoy that?" And they were like, "Yeah, it was a blast." You know, I'm like, "Really? What?" Like, because I imagine from that side now, like I thought it was so cool and like what an adventure. But then I'm like, I think of that from the parent side now, and I have one child, and it's work. So Doling, you've got 17. I can't imagine what
yeah, but I think we're whinier as parents that are like you just got to say it earlier anecdotally how your dad, you know, they worked so hard and you know they did what they could. So to them a trip like that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, you're right.
Like that's another thing I'm looking back on. We take our kids somewhere like multiple times every year.
Yeah.
And just like you, we went on one Black Hills trip my entire childhood.
Yeah,
like
we did that. We did that. We had my other close number 5 was Wisconsin Dells. I'm the same crappy pop-up camper, and but yeah, no, it was just a big deal to get out of the state. And to drive through. We got to see some bears. We thought bears were going to eat us. Overall, it was cool. So that's my number 5.
Cool. Nice. All right, moving on. My number 4 was none other than Michelle and my honeymoon in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, 2006. I believe
she's going to be pissed. That's number 4.
No, she's on here She's on here again.
Okay.
But I think she'd agree with this too. We're almost, it's like you're young. Like we got married when we were 24. And because it was our honeymoon, we didn't go out and about as much. Yep. You know, we did a lot of room service. I mean, we had a great time. It was crazy hot. It was like late July that year, and I think it was over 100 degrees every day we were down there. So I mean, you get, and the sun is intense down in Mexico, like everybody tells you. So very conscientious of that, but really good time. Did some touring, did some sailboating. I got anything else I'm going to save for later on. So just keep it
Ooh.
short and sweet. Good one.
All right.
My number 4 was also my honeymoon.
Oh.
To Negril, Jamaica. Yeah, it was.
Ooh.
I'm not a big leave the country guy, but I sucked it up. Yeah, we went to all inclusive. It was.
What resort?
Who knows, Jeremy?
Yeah, I can't. I was trying to remember ours too. It was like Paradise Club.
It wasn't hedonism
Paradise
too.
Club.
I'll tell you that. We missed out. We did pick some folks up from there though. That
Was it the
seems
Rio? The
like a
Rio?
wild. No, that doesn't sound right.
Hmm.
I think it was like a chain
Yeah.
place.
Well,
but
Rio is a chain.
who
Yeah.
knows? I don't do a lot of these vacays like this, but yeah, it was a fun trip. I'd never done the all inclusive thing. We didn't take vacation as a kid either. You know, our hotel overlooked the nude beach, so that was exciting. Every day as we walked to the normal beach, I was like, well, we sneak a left here, and my wife was like, no, we're not doing that. But then she wanted these couples massages, so I called into the guy and I was like, hey, I'm looking to set up a couples massage. And they speak English there, but it's sometimes hard to understand. And I got off the phone and I'm like, I think I might have just scheduled 2 massages for myself. I'm not 100% sure. So we walked down to the place and I'm like, yeah, I think I have some sort of massage scheduled, and the guy's like, oh yeah, we got you down for a couples massage. Do you want it in the cabana or one of the massage rooms? And I was like, what's the cabana? He's like, oh, it's just like an outside cabana. I was like, okay, well, let's do that. That seems pleasant. Beautiful day. So we start walking and I'm like, why aren't we going to the cabanas like here? Like, why are we walking? And we start walking towards the beach. We take that sweet left. And my wife looks at me like, you have planned this whole time. And
Like she thinks you want to just get naked together on this public beach.
Yeah, like apparently.
That's your motivation.
No, I think
driver?
she thinks I mostly want to see people naked on the beach.
Okay.
I don't think she was like, yeah, he just wants to be helicoptering down the beach having the time of his life. Like, I don't think that's what she thought I was looking for. But yeah, so we like walked through the entire length of the nude beach to make it to this cabana, and this whole time my wife she's like red faced and I'm kid in a candy store. It was one of the greatest moments of my life. And we get to the cabana and the guy's like, all right, like, get naked. And we're like no privacy. He's like, oh, I mean, we can drop the shades if you'd want. Yeah, right. Best massage I've ever had in my life, if I'm gonna be honest. I do massages, and that one was good. They killed it. Wasn't just the environment. It was a good massage. So yeah, that was a great trip. That was my number 4, Negril, Jamaica.
All right, Negril, Jamaica.
Like, oddly enough, Casey, like, that's why I asked if it was Rio. Mine is Jamaica as well, also on the grill. We went down there for a buddy's wedding. We were down there for like Monday through Friday. It was just a crazy fun trip. Also, my first experience with a all-inclusive motel. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Did you take a left at the turnpike?
We did not. So it was a college teammate. Some of my favorite memories on this trip. Holy smokes! There was a jerk chicken guy that was selling jerk chicken every afternoon on the beach, and we went there and every afternoon, great food, right? And so we had buddies that would go up, and they were like, oh, well, like Jamaicans are fast, right? Like, so he would go and,
and common knowledge.
Yeah, right. So he would just talk trash and be like, oh no, like let's sprint on the beach. And they were talking about it, like, Usain Bolt, and he's doing this, right? And he's, by early morning had a few drinks, right? And so it's 2 in the afternoon.
Baby. Yeah.
And they're just talking, and he's just talking mad trash to this guy. And they're, like, did they give you any warnings when you went to Negril? Like, when we were there,
I don't think so. They said don't go to Kingston.
when we were there, it was like, don't leave the resort, right?
Mhm.
They're
Yeah,
just like,
very
you'll get mugged, right? Like and maybe
The
true,
drive
maybe
from
not.
the airport to my resort was all the messaging I needed not to leave the resort.
Correct. I almost
Nobody
peed my
had to tell
pants
me.
on the way back to the airport. That was terrible. It was a long drive. But anyways,
On a
the guy
very
had like
narrow road.
multiple like kind of like cuts in his eyebrows. And so my buddy's just happy-go-lucky idiot from Iowa and just talking mad trash to this dude. And we get back and they're like, yeah, don't mess with this dude. Like he's in one of like the baddest gangs in town.
Yeah.
And so it was just a lot of fun moments like that where we almost died. Yeah, I agree. The catamaran went by the hedonism resort and we were like, okay, this is interesting. And I don't know, you said kid in a candy store. I would say some of that you just can't unsee. It's not always a good thing. So
yeah, just go to the courts plus like
I take it
locker
all in,
rooms.
Jeremy. I take it all in. It's all a joy in life.
it's all a joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
But
right.
yeah, Jamaica, number 4.
Jamaica. A couple Jamaicans. Nice.
I did see an eel while I was there as well. It did not bite me.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I was worried about eel bites for
Yeah,
quite a
seemed
while
kind
there.
of wussy, if I'm going to be honest. It saw me and just skedaddled.
Okay. My number 3 is a trip we took a couple years back with the whole family, taking them to the aforementioned, Jeremy dropped, the Wisconsin Dells.
Cool.
So we've been there a few times with the kids. This was our favorite trip. It was MEA break 2020. Made all the more sweet because Michelle and I had just conquered COVID for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So we got out of our
For the first time,
like a 10-day
He's
quarantine.
a COVID freedom fighter.
And we had this trip booked a while or just prior to that. And we get back to worked like 3 days, and then we're back on heading on this trip. And we were a little like back and forth, wishy-washy. God, do we even go? And things are locking back down again at that point in time. And we decided just to follow through with a commitment to it. We checked and everything was still open at the resort. And it ended up just being such a great respite from everything else that was going on. And we get over there and it was like it was kind of almost like a little bit frozen in time, even though you're just in Wisconsin. It was like, a little touristy place like that, just keeps buzzing along. And it was a great trip. I think it was a shot in the arm. Everybody felt good. And it's a fun place. I think we stayed at Mount Olympus Resort at that time, and which is a fun place. I'd recommend that one for anybody with family. Pretty good. Lots to do. So that was my number 3, Wisconsin Dells 2020.
Nice
Somewhere
outlet mall there too.
Yeah,
They
I
have
want to
a
take
nice
my kids
outlet
there.
Mhm.
Some
I
point.
think we stopped there on the way. Was it back from Chicago or to Chicago?
Yep.
Yeah.
What would be like the youngest age where you'd say that's like a family appropriate trip?
Yeah, 4.
All right, I'm getting there. Good. My number 3, I don't know, 2008, 2009, probably. We went with a group of friends. I think there was maybe 7 of us. We rented a houseboat on Lake Powell, launched out of Arizona, went through Utah. If you guys have never scoped out Lake Powell, it's just awesome. It's sandstone cut through. I think the lake's like 170 miles long. And the house was it was fun. It was probably my most relaxing vacation because we just putted around at like 5 miles an hour. I think of a 170-mile lake, we made it like 15 miles over the course of the 3 days. And, we just pulled up on sandbars all over the place. We did bonfires, we had beer, we did hiking. We were there, I think 3 days, and it rained 2 of the 3 days, which is kind of a bummer when you're in Arizona.
Yeah.
We went on this hike to,
Wow, yeah.
it's one of the world's largest natural arches is located there. So we went and hiked it, and it's like raining the whole time. And we're just kind of in pissed off moods because we left North Dakota to get sun and warm, and all we got was rain. And, our tour guide's like, you guys are so lucky. We don't get this much rain in an entire year. And we're like, yeah, this is great.
Great.
We brought it with us.
Yeah, like we wanted to like camp out, and we just had to sit in the houseboat, and I don't know. But it was a cool trip. One of the most relaxing things I've ever done is just get that houseboat and just cruise around. You stop wherever you want, you swim. There's some pretty sheer cliffs there, so you can just dive into the water wherever you want.
You guys stayed on the houseboat this entire time.
Yep.
Boat.
I mean, we would stop and camp.
I did boat.
We had tents and things, but we mostly just slept on there.
That's really cool.
Yeah, double decker, so you can be up top and suntan while somebody else is driving the boat around. You can fish there. Fun fact, being you start in Arizona, but it covers Utah. You do need to buy 2 fishing licenses, so we fished illegally like the entire time we were there. Didn't realize that.
Darn those guys.
Yeah, but it's cool. Like there's like floating convenience stores on the lake that you can stop by, get food, gas, all that stuff as you're going along. So it was just a cool trip. Yeah, just one of the most relaxing things I've ever done. Get a houseboat. Very cool. Lake Powell on number 3.
Very cool.
Get a boat.
Get a boat. Houseboat. Live on it.
All right, we're on number 3 still, right?
You got it. It's weird going last, huh?
It is, God. Used to having that comfort of being in the middle.
Just
My
a
number
nice,
3
gentle hug by 2 grown men.
Number 3 is Cancun. We made this trip a number of times. My wife has won a President's Club trip, and so they put us up at an all-inclusive resort down there. So really chill. It's my kind of vacation, probably less hers, but I'm not. Are you guys doers on vacation?
Not at all. That's why Lake Powell's the best. We couldn't do anything but sit on a boat.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Well, I am.
You're a doer.
I've converted to more of a doer. Yeah. Busybody, just a busybody.
See, I would rather just sit at the pool all day and sleep in and do nothing. And it was great for me too, because they had little iPads in the room where you could do the room service thing. That's totally not me.
It's nice.
So it would be, it'd be 1 a.m. and I'm like ordering cheeseburgers and stuff like that. And Amy's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I have to use this. I would never do this on my own time." So, yeah, it was Secrets of the Vine. It was the resort, a great place. Yeah, a lot of good restaurants on the resort. Yeah, that's my number 3.
Yeah, that awesome. Is one thing my wife and I have had to like kind of come to terms with a little bit is I'm not a doer either. I'm like a chiller. And I'm also like, I'm kind of an introvert. So when we go on vacation, like
I don't want to meet people.
I don't want to meet people, and I'm probably going to disappear at some point.
You guys are missing out. So missing out.
Well, I got to recharge the social batteries. Like even on that houseboat, I remember like I brought a book. I like to read. So like we were hanging out and I just went into the room and read for like an hour and a half because I could, and it was nice. Yeah. And my wife's like, "What are you doing? We traveled however many 100 miles to hang out with your friends and you're reading a book by yourself." It's like, well, but that's what I want to do. And that's how I recharge. Like if you're going to push me, just be an extrovert for 3 days. Like I'm going to get grumpy and shit.
I'm going to be mad.
Give me 2 hours. And she understands that now. But I remember that was like we got to talk a little bit. Like you're going to not like me if we're going to like push it that hard for the rest of the trip. So.
Yeah. Well, I've converted to a doer. I think I always was a little bit of a busybody anyways on vacation, but I was really torn on my number 2 because I've had a lot of these trips are just Michelle and myself, like getting away, and that's been awesome. And like last year we went to Tampa Bay for the 50th anniversary, and we did an amazing fishing trip, which again, that's a doer thing. And Jeremy, I know you're a fisher guy. You like that kind of shallow water, deep water. So yeah, highly recommend that. I mean, busybody, but that was a great trip. But at the end of the day, my number 2 actually went to close to where you were just at in Cancun, went to Playa del Carmen about 3 years ago in August of 19. That was just awesome. And to that point on getting to know people, and I understand the introvert piece, but man, we make so many fun friends when we're on these trips, and we met a couple from California. I wrote down like kind of this really fun couple who they were just gotten engaged, but they were like each on their second marriage. They're like our parents' age from Boston. I mean, they were awesome to hang out with, and even these kooky folks from Austin, Texas.
Boston, Texas.
Austin, Massachusetts. Yeah, Austin, Texas.
Okay.
They were first time offered cocaine in quite a while. And offered ecstasy. So they were
that's
really
the kind of friends you meet. I am missing out, huh?
You start with some morning cocktails, maybe a mimosa or what have you, margarita. The drugs don't seem to get offered until you end up at somebody's villa, and we walk in, and they're like, "Let's go hang out in this villa. We got this other mini. It's amazing, this resort. I don't even remember the name, but they had their own little private villa, private pool, mini pool. So we're like, all right, we'll go hang out there for a little while with these new friends, and they had other new friends. And anyways, you walk in, and it was literally like a scene from a movie where here we are. We've referenced many times, we're like these upper Midwestern movie loving dudes. So it's like a scene out of a flick where we walk in, and I'm like, oh, there's like a coffee table with cocaine on it, like in a card, like right next to it.
Don't see that every day.
No, thank you. So I just make my way right to the pool, and then these guys are like freaking tweaking on some E, and they're like, "You need to take some too." I'm like, "No." And Michelle, that's really not her jam at all. So she's like dragging me out of there. It's probably for the best, but otherwise, really nice.
No,
people.
we're having fun, babe.
Yeah, loosen up. Learn that we're on vacay.
It got a little awkward.
We can order a hamburger at 1 o'clock in the morning.
And you're
fighting.
You feel like you're already fighting that stigma from like the upper Midwest. Like everybody already thinks we're meek and timid and everything. Yeah. So we're like, oh, geez. Well, I didn't know there was gonna be drugs here, fellas. So
oh gosh, is that flour on the table over there?
Yeah. Well,
you boys have a good night. Be safe.
Left something down at the pool. Come on. So that was a great trip though overall. Met lots of awesome people. That's our number 2, Playa del Carmen, Mexico.
That was a wild trip. Yeah, my number 2. I went nostalgia with this sucker a little bit too. Because I'm like you guys. Growing up, we took one trip out to Cheyenne, Wyoming. So went through the Black Hills. My grandma lived out there, so we went to see my grandma one time in my life. It's a long way to go.
It's expensive.
So then again, my wife and I did the Black Hills thing when we were dating, because we didn't have any money. I was in PT school, she was working a retail job. That was a great trip. And then this last year we just took our kids there, and it was so fun to like relive some of those memories, share them with our kids. First real family vacation we've taken. I mean, we've did like Great Wolf Lodge in the cities and things like that with them, but like to plan and like go and do multiple things. We went out to Dickinson, did the Dino Museum, did the Enchanted Highway, did Deadwood, Mount Rushmore, did all that stuff around there, Bear Country, swung around and hit Storybook Land up in Aberdeen on the way back, and Wall Drug.
Ooh, I know that well.
Yeah, so it was a blast. My kids had fun. It was like that first real like excitement moment. Like they thought Mount Rushmore was cool and the Dino museums, and it was just fun.
Great moments.
I mean, there was a time on the Enchanted Highway where my daughter had to stop and pee 45 times, which was frustrating, but we dug through it because that stretch the Bison were playing a football game, so I was like, it can take a while. I gotta listen to the sucker for 4 hours anyway, so pee away, little girl. So it was a great trip.
Win-win, really.
Yep. That was my number 2. Just first real trip with the family. It's probably gonna stick with me for a long time. So
that's
awesome. It
was
a blast. Yeah, it was great.
Cool.
0 nude beaches.
It's even not earmuffs. It's
yeah. Well, maybe in Deadwood. I mean,
even in Deadwood,
I would say my daughter probably stripped naked 500 times on the trip, but
doesn't count.
No.
She'd take a left at that turnpike for sure.
Yeah.
So my number 2 is again, it's going nostalgic. This was by far the biggest family vacation that we took. We went to Puerto Rico when I was probably in 7th grade. We had some like family friends. They're both docs in Canby, but both lived in Puerto Rico. One was from the Dominican Republic. They lived in Puerto Rico for a while, then they moved here and lived in Canby, and they forever, I think, just probably hounded my parents. Like, you gotta go, you gotta go, you gotta go. So we did. And again, you look at like, I even appreciate it more now because I'm like, I look at like probably like, again, the sacrifice that it took to, you know, throw 7 kids or 7 people on a plane and go do that. And, but did a little bit of snorkeling there, Gilligan's Island, like little mangrove island.
That's cool.
We got to see Old San Juan. It was cool too, because he's from there, or both of them are from there. So like you got like the real experience versus this like the straight tourist one. So Old San Juan, you get to see like the 16th century Spanish forts, the El Yunque, I think it's Yunque National Forest. So like you get everything on that little island. It's like 30 by 100 miles, and you have desert, you have rainforest. We went to see the observatory there. So they have the giant 007 satellite there. That was pretty cool. Got to see
Did anybody follow it while you were there?
No.
Not 006.
Cable guy.
But they had cable guy. They have a little bioluminescent bay there too. So we went on a little boat tour at night, and had guys diving into the water, and you get this phosphorescent algae in there. So that's good memories. Again, that was by far the biggest, best, first time on a plane. It was pretty crazy for me as a kid. So that was my number 2.
You said it's 7th grade?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. On to number 1. My number 1 is the 10th anniversary trip that Michelle and I took to Cabo San Lucas,
Cabo,
Mexico. Just freaking awesome. I know what's been said here, and I do agree with you guys that all-inclusive is the way to go. It's so nice, so slick. However, this is like such a deviation from that, because Cabo, I accidentally booked a non-all-inclusive, and I didn't even realize it till we were like flying down. Huh? Michelle's like, "Oh yeah, I did the research," and I'm like, "Oh really?" Now, like I've heard this said before.
Might as well wear sleeves on that trip, Nick.
The hidden gem, it gets you off the resort, and Cabo is such a beautiful place to just walk. Like you do feel safe, as opposed to the grill, like you guys were mentioning. Like you feel safe just walking down the beach, and there is something like if you go on TripAdvisor, because everybody's telling you to go on TripAdvisor and rate their place anyways. There is like 300 plus bar and grills like all along this marina, and we got out constantly. Had such a great time. I'm going to give one more shout out here to our friends Mike and Brooke that we met. They're no longer together, unfortunately. We still stay in touch with them to this day. They're from Toronto, and really we ended up we connected with them like the first day, and then it was so cool. We just do our own thing throughout the day, and then we'd end up like kind of just randomly meeting up around like 5-6 o'clock at the pool bar. And it was like, hey, where are you going to go tonight? Oh, we'll go with you. We'll go here, and it was just awesome. Just fantastic time. On the second to last night, on our actual anniversary, we had kind of the sailboat tour around just a beautiful bay that is down there at the tip of Cabo. Everything is all inclusive on that actual portion of it that we paid for. Well, we paid for it, so it's all inclusive. Came back in and
all came out of my wallet.
Yeah. And everybody's so friendly. Like when we were like, yeah, it's actually our anniversary today. Maybe it was 10 years. And they literally just give you free drinks. So
here's some cocaine
nice too. Nah, no cocaine on this one, but lots of tequila and lots of rum. And we didn't have like the most comfortable flight back the next day. I'll tell you that was a little rough, but best vacation experience could have asked for. Got to see Cabo Wabo too when we're down there for you Sammy Hagar fans. Really cool, very neat vibe there. So that was one of our nights going on. My number one, Cabo San Lucas.
Nice. Yeah, Mexico terrifies me. That's where you die.
Come on.
That's where you die.
I've been there like
said it
4
last
times.
time. Don't invite death into your life. There's lots of nice places here. My number one is like the opposite of Mexico.
Grand Forks.
Close. I think it was my wife's 30th birthday. We decided to plan a trip to Duluth, Minnesota.
Sure.
And here's the deal, like, I'm not a trip planner at all. Like, if we're like, hey, let's go somewhere, what should we do? And it's like, I don't know, get there and figure it out. Like, because worst case scenario, I'll just hang out at the hotel, which is what I want to do. So for my wife's 30th, because my wife's birthday is 9 days after ours, and then our good friend, his birthday is sandwiched in between ours, and then his wife is one of my wife's best friends. So I was like, the four of us will go, and I'll plan this sucker. Like, I made an itinerary of like every hour what we were gonna do. I called ahead.
That makes me nervous.
Like, see, you yourself, you're bucking what you said a little bit ago, where you were saying, hey, I'm more of a chiller than
I am. Guy. So I did this for my wife because it was her birthday and I wanted to surprise her. So like we went sailing. So I had to call ahead and reserve a spot on sailing. We toured the Glen Sheen Mansion, so I had to like reserve that. We had reservations at the revolving restaurant there. We went up to, what is it, Gooseberry Park up north with the falls. We did the pie thing when we were up there. It was just a cool trip. One of my favorite moments on the trip, on the way back, I had got us a bed and breakfast out in the middle of nowhere. I don't even remember where it was by. Just out in the middle of nowhere, and we're driving like on a gravel road, like 30 minutes in the dark to get to this place. We get there, there's like no lights on. We drive around, there's like a little shady ass trailer in the back that, it's like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre situation.
You were in heaven.
I was loving it. I was like, this is creepy as hell.
No wonder this is your number one vacation spot.
So we finally find the lady and she lets us in, and it's like upstairs, and we all get settled. And
he's like, you got to crawl through these syringes and find this key.
I said, easy. That's easy peasy.
You did say it was going to be easy.
Yeah. And everybody's getting ready. And upstairs, there's like a landing sitting area. And up there, they have like ghost stories of Minnesota or whatever books out. And like this whole time, my buddy, he's kind of a scaredy cat, and he's like, dude, this place is kind of creepy. Like, why did you book this place? And I'm like, it's no big deal. Like, quit being a baby. And then they all come out, and we're going to have like a nightcap before we go to bed. And I'm like, let's read a story. So I grab one of the books, and there's a story of like a traveling salesman, and he like ends up at a house, and as he's talking to the person comes out with like a lantern. And the story goes something like a strong gust of wind went, and the lantern went out, and they were plunged into darkness. And right when I said that, the power went out in the house.
Ooh.
We were plunged into complete darkness. Like, I couldn't even see the other people across the couch. And it feels like about, 30 seconds. And finally, I hear my buddy go across the room. He goes, this is terrifying. And finally, the lights turned back on. And he's like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I didn't do that. And it was so funny because I'm kind of an early bird. So I get up the next morning, and I'm back out in that little sitting area, just kind of dinking around. And like, I can hear them in their room get up. It's so dumb because their room had like this stupid old like rotary phone in there. So I can hear my buddy get up, and I hear him like go over and ding it a few times and pick it up, and goes, hello, hello. And like, he giggles, right? And then like, I could hear him go, Monica. And she's like, what? He's like, remember when the lights went off last night? That was horrifying. Like, I could just hear him have this conversation, and it was just awesome because then he walked out, and I'm laughing. It was just a fun trip, just a good trip with friends.
We can't leave here soon enough.
Yeah. We skipped the breakfast. He had already had the car packed. We just left. So it was a wonderful
great.
trip.
It's your number one. That's great.
Duluth.
All these shenanigans.
Ton of fun stuff to do in Duluth. And like, the death factor was so low. Never felt like I was going to die there.
Until you got possessed.
But,
Yeah.
but
I still felt pretty
resorts
safe.
in Mexico are just scary.
Yeah, that's enjoy your head. You might not have it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Not with the folk that Doling's hanging out with.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was
yeah,
Playa.
he
That
gets
was
in
Playa.
with he gets
It's
in
on the
with those
Caribbean
folks.
side.
Double
Stay on
crossing them.
stay on the Pacific side. You'll be fine.
All right.
Go ahead, Jer.
My number one, we went down to the Florida Keys this January. We went to
Recent.
Casa de Vandover in
Get that name drop out there.
Yeah. Wado. Got a nice little spot down in Marathon, Florida. Man, that was a fun trip. You guys, like, I think you guys both mentioned it at one point or another during your list. It was our first family trip too.
Yeah.
My daughter's just about to turn 2, so it was interesting the first time having her on a plane. But just a blast. We got to get down there. We went there with basically my wife's whole side of the family. So crazy trip. Our flight was supposed to leave at 6 in the morning. We're getting up at 3 in the morning to go to the airport. And our sister-in-law is calling and saying like, "Hey, our flight got canceled." And we're like, "No, it didn't." They're like, "Yeah, it did. They can get us to Atlanta, but that's it." So, it just started off like super chaotic. Like we had to rebook the second leg of our trip to get down there. But once we did, got to go hang out. It was a real family trip. Got to go hang out. Aquariums, a ton of cool little restaurants on the beach. We did a little fishing for a half day there. It was just a really cool trip. And we found out there, the icing on the cake, or proverbial icing on the cake, was we found out that we did a little gender reveal while we were down there, and that's when we found out we're having a son. So
special.
It was just like a cool moment, like being with our whole family, doing that. Like my daughter was the one that hit the cake to see if it was blue or pink, and so it's just a cool trip. So I recommend it if you haven't been down there. A lot of family friendly stuff to do, some touristy stuff, but some off the kind of beaten path stuff too that was really fun. So that would be my number one. So
awesome, man. Very good. I got to do that one sometime too. But man, that's a popular little outing place, VRBO, because it's booked pretty tight.
It is.
Awesome, boys.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks everybody for listening. That was episode 23 in the books.
It was 22.
As always, Nick,
MJ.
I've edited the beginning out. Nobody knows I messed up. So
Casey totally screwed up the beginning.
Cool.
Like,
first time in
share.
23 episodes.
Dishonored Michael Jordan.
As always, if you guys got any topics you want to hear us chat about, any top fives you want us to go over, go ahead and shoot us an email at ptshoptalk@gmail.com. Remember, you can always look at us YouTube if you want to see our ugly faces, see Nick's biceps, my ridiculous blue shirt. Check us out there. Follow us on Twitter, ptshoptalk1. And until next time, I'm Casey Hansen.